A couple weeks ago, I talked about the big-time RFAs that have yet to sign. Since then, we've seen some big updates, mostly with Matty Beniers signing his big-time extension. Now, since that video, we got a lot of big-time updates and some pretty bad news on players like Robertson, Jeremy Swayman, Raymond, and more. But today, we're going to be breaking down all the latest news, all the latest trade rumors, so you guys can be informed. So make sure you watch till the end for all of the coverage, and hit that subscribe button if you're new for more hockey content just like this all throughout the year. Now, we do have some good news since that video. A couple RFAs did end up signing contract extensions. We first saw Cole Sillinger with the Blue Jackets finally signing a new deal. In terms of AAV, actually being quite solid at $2.25 million for the next 2 years. The big one, though, was absolutely Matty Beniers with the Seattle Kraken signing a 7-year contract at $7.1 million. And I think this is best case scenario for Seattle to get him around that cap hit. I would say in his rookie season, he was already kind of up that range in AAV value. And once he continues to grow, once he gets back on that offensive game, that cap hit is going to look blissful. Especially with the cap going up, it won't be much of a problem. I'm personally a pretty big optimist in Beniers' case. He's somebody that in his rookie season we know was dynamic, 57 points in 80 games. This last year took a bit of a step back, but got to a decent level in that second half. And I think that's what you're looking for in Beniers' game. You wanted to see him take a little bit of a step, especially with that lackluster first half, and he did. I think the main reason why Beniers' slump happened was because of the supporting cast around him. Sure, there were some inconsistencies sometimes, especially earlier on in the season, where you wanted to see him be a little bit more of a game breaker, but I don't know if Beniers is ever going to be that type of player. He's going to be this two-way stud that is impactful in all areas of the game, and I think his offense, once Seattle gets better around him, will get better. But that's pretty much it on the RFA side, and since then we've heard a lot of tension with a lot of key RFAs, and first we're going to talk about Robertson with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Robertson's situation with the Leafs has kind of been a little bit of an enigma. He's somebody that with Toronto, I think should have already broken out at some point, but he's had some iffy injury history and just hasn't been able to seize the opportunity that has been given to him. He's somebody that in his draft year I liked quite a bit, was a first rounder for me, and even though he went in the second, I still thought would be a pretty critical piece of the Leafs going forward on the wings, and he's somebody that this last year was able to get to a career high in points, 27 points, 14 goals in 56 games. The problem was he wasn't doing much more than scoring when he was out there, and the lack of ice time made it to where he wasn't really a critical piece, especially come playoff time. He's somebody that I mean can be better, should be better with the Leafs, but they've kind of hit a little bit of a wall here as an RFA. We have a huge update here from Chris Johnson talking about the Robertson situation and his future with the Leafs, saying on whether Robertson will even report to camp. At this stage, Robertson doesn't seem inclined to sign in Toronto and is sticking to the idea that he'd like to play somewhere else next season. He continues to say there's a path for him to play given the Leafs depth chart at left wing. It ultimately makes a lot of sense for him and the Leafs to end up together, but I just don't know if that's going to happen. And I mean, Chris Johnson is absolutely correct. You look at the Leafs left wing depth and it's pretty rough. I mean, Connor Dewar is going to be solid on the fourth line, but you got Bobby McMahon, Pontus Holmberg. Those are guys that Robertson probably should be better than, but you had players like Bobby McCann coming in and kind of stealing his role away from him. There is opportunity for Robertson to be, I think, even a top 6 winger on this team, but just hasn't been able to realize that potential. I get the rumors out there that Robertson didn't really have the greatest relationship with Sheldon Keefe, and maybe that's something that is just nagging on him and makes him leave in the first place, but there's a new coach here in Craig Berube, and even though he's not really the biggest fan of smaller players sometimes, he will give them opportunities if they are good enough, and I think Robertson has the opportunity here to be still a big-time player in Toronto, which makes it even more confusing that this is the offseason that he's requesting a trade. I don't feel like this is the season to do it. You have all the opportunity, give it one more go at the very least, but to quit now and not even sign as an RFA is just puzzling to me. This is what's weird about this whole situation to me, is that even on some other bottom feeder teams with cap space, he's not demonstrably better than their left wing depth. I mean, you look at a team like Anaheim, they got Robbie Fabry, Brock McGinn as their bottom 6 left wings. You got Utah with Alexander Kerfoot potentially as a fourth line left wing. You got Columbus with Justin Danforth. Is Robertson so much better than Justin Danforth at this stage? I don't think he's proven to be. There are spots on a lot of these teams, but Robertson is still at the stage where he needs to fight and compete no matter what team he's out there with. I don't think he's guaranteed a spot on any team out there right now. And even in Toronto, I think they honestly have one of the better left wing situations for him to succeed, and he's just giving up on it weirdly. I could understand Robertson wanting to change his scenery, but bud, be careful what you wish for. Now that leads me on to the second RFA situation I want to talk about here today, and it is Jeremy Swayman. He was one of the free agents in that video a couple weeks ago that I was the most concerned about, considering Boston trading Linus Ullmark and maybe not even having Jeremy Swayman ready for the season. Well, things have seemingly gotten even more far apart in Swayman's camp, even worse, and I don't even know if this situation will get resolved anytime soon. We got this tweet here from the Bruins Benders podcast talking about another scoop here, this coming from Rich Keefe, saying that Jeremy Swayman is looking for $10 million per year from the Bruins. Now, this to me is absolutely insane. Unless it's an 8-year deal, then I guess I could possibly see where the Swayman camp is coming from. He has been one of the better goaltenders of the past couple of years, and he's been making steady progress for the Bruins every single year. There's a reason why the Bruins traded Linus Ullmark in the first place, and that was to have Jeremy Swayman as the #1 guy. But I just gotta say, man, I know why they did it, but trading Linus Ullmark without even having Swayman signed is looking like a major blunder by this Bruins squad. I mean, geez, if they don't end up signing Jeremy Swayman by the time training camp starts, you could have Joonas Korpisalo as your starter in 2024. And you can ask how the much worse Ottawa Senators fared with that, and it wasn't very good. We saw what Korpisalo was made of last year, and he had an .890 save percentage in 55 games with the Ottawa Senators. Even as a backup, I don't know if he's extremely reliable for this Bruins squad, which makes signing Jeremy Swayman so much more important, and honestly gives the Swayman camp even more leverage. You look at what Swayman has been able to do, and last year in 44 games, he was able to get a .916 save percentage. The year before that in 37 games, a .920 save percentage. He hasn't fully confirmed himself as this 50, 60 game starter yet, but I think Swayman does have the potential to be that type of guy and to be that stud for the Boston Bruins. And still at a pretty young age too, at 25, it's clear that he is the future. But honestly, I don't really blame the Swayman camp for asking for the complete bag, because they might honestly get it in the end. The Bruins have no leverage here, and with how they position themselves in the goaltending market here, they really have no other options but to sign Swayman, to get him out here as soon as humanly possible. And if they don't, their season might go awry. I mean, if Swayman is unsigned for the first couple months, I could see that as a major dent for the Bruins' playoff hopes. I think they still make it no matter what, but man, it would be extremely close. With that Atlantic Division being what it is, you can't afford to not have him. I don't really blame the Swayman camp, though, for going for the bag here, because honestly, they might end up getting it. There is really no situation here where the Bruins can afford to not have Swayman there for a training camp for the start of the season. If he goes a couple months into the season still unsigned, the Bruins could be in a position where they could kiss their playoff hopes goodbye. This Atlantic Division is going to be highly competitive. Every single year it is, but the Bruins cannot afford a misstep here. Already with the retirements of big-time players like Bergeron and Krejci in the past, they need everything they can get right now, and not having Swayman would be a killer blow. And you just look at pure goal save above expected last year among all NHL goalies. Swayman was 5th in the entire league last year with 22.79. Absolutely incredible season, and he's somebody that I think can build upon that as well. I don't think he's done growing whatsoever. I could absolutely see a situation where he's maybe even top 3 next year. We know the quality that Swayman can put out, and it's very easy to see why the Swayman camp is asking for big money. But I'm sure the Swayman camp is looking at it this way. The Florida Panthers just went all the way, winning the Stanley Cup with Sergei Bobrovsky at $10 million. And if Swayman is at that top 5 level for the next 8 seasons, then how is he not worth that $10 million? How is he not worth that upper range of goalies in this league? I mean, we've seen a little bit of a cool down in terms of goalie overpayments recently, but in Swayman's case, with the age, with how important he is to the Bruins, how much they've already traded to make him important to this Bruins squad, there is the case here and all the momentum here on Swayman's side to get a deal done. The problem, though, is for the Bruins, not even just for other seasons, just for right now, they wouldn't have enough money to keep Jeremy Swayman and everything under wraps. They right now have $8.57 million in cap space, and that's just for this next season. If they signed Swayman at $10 million, they wouldn't have enough cap for 2025, let alone for the other 7 seasons that Swayman might sign for. It's going to be a pretty big headache for the Bruins and might result in somebody having to be dealt. Is it going to have to be a player like Max Jones, who they signed for $1 million, or maybe even a big-time D like a Brandon Carlo, it might have to require some surgery here, especially if the Swayman camp ends up getting what they want. I think most likely they'll end up settling around the $8.5–9 million range, but at the very least, it seems like somebody might have to go off the roster for it to happen. As David Pagnotta reports, though, Bruins and Swayman seem confident a deal will be there for camp, so I don't know. We'll see what ends up happening, but $10 million for Swayman is pretty nuts. We get some other notes as well here, especially around the Seth Jarvis situation, another one that we talked about quite a lot in a video a couple weeks ago. But as David Pagnotta says, Jarvis and the Canes sound close on a long-term deal, maybe 7 to 8 year range, around 7.5 million AAV. Now, thankfully, this is actually some pretty great news. I think for the Canes, they needed to keep Seth Jarvis in any way possible, and I think around 7.5 million is honestly pretty fair. I think he'll top out around the 70–75 point range for a lot of his career, but I love Seth Jarvis. I love the intensity he brings. I love what he was able to do this last year. 33 goals, 67 points in 81 games. He is a key part of this Canes team going forward, and it is so key they got this deal done or are close to getting it done. That leads us on, though, to the next situation, specifically around the Detroit Red Wings, another situation that I was kind of iffy on, and as David Pagnotta says, Raymond and the Wings are not close. Bergeron deal likely by camp. He gets to Detroit this weekend, but really the big thing there is that the Raymond situation with the Wings is not close whatsoever. Their contract disputes are all the way out, and this is just really rough to see, man. Not even any notes on Moritz Seider as well. Detroit still hasn't signed any of their 3 top RFAs, which is pretty concerning. I get that Steve Yzerman, especially with his RFAs, loves to nickel and dime players, not really with the UFAs because of Ben Sherrod and JT Compher and Justin Hall, and I could go down the list. It's been speculated that Lucas Raymond wants more of a shorter-term deal while the Red Wings want a long-term deal with him. And honestly, I think in Raymond's case, it makes a lot of sense. He's somebody that I think has just continued to improve and improve. And this last year in Detroit, 31 goals, 72 points in 82 games. He's somebody that just continues to get better and better. And the thing is, I think Raymond could absolutely be in a position to get a shorter-term deal to maximize the money here. And that's what he should be doing in any situation. I want to see the players get the most money possible. In Raymond's case, I think he absolutely deserves it. And I think a shorter-term deal works most for him. But I think in Raymond's case, he's calling Detroit's bluff and making sure that he can get the most money possible. I mean, you see with the Red Wings' depth and the offense they have there, they need more top-end scoring. And that's even with Lucas Raymond still on the roster. They need him as much as humanly possible to be competitive in this Atlantic Division. And especially with him, Moritz Seider, and Bergeron all unsigned, those are critical parts of this Red Wings team. Specifically in Raymond and Seider's case, this Red Wings roster does not even move without them, in my opinion. You just look at what the roster might look like without them, and in Lucas Raymond's case, you might have a player like Bergeron on the second line or a Michael Rasmussen in that position, and not even thinking about the defense with Moritz Seider. I mean, I don't even want to begin with how bad that might look. You would have Jeff Petrie potentially as the first pair right D. Stop this, Yzerman. Get these deals done. I've just realized that all the bad situations we talked about so far relate to Atlantic Division teams, and this is what's very interesting because if all these players continue to hold out, maybe not in the case of Nicholas Robertson, but in Swayman and Seider, in Raymond's case, if all these guys remain unsigned, that has pivotal implications to the Atlantic Division race, especially with the Bruins and their influx position right now with the Red Wings trying to make that next push. If they aren't able to re-sign these guys, I don't think that happens. That could leave a team like the Senators or a team like the Sabres rising up in the standings because of it. And then we go into the last situation here with Mercer and the New Jersey Devils saying that they're not close either, but having ongoing talks, which is at least something, I guess. Mercer's one of those situations that I really don't have much of concern with, especially considering New Jersey's cap space right now at $5.7 million. I think they will end up getting a deal done. I think Mercer just needs to kind of go back to reality a little bit, especially considering this last season, 33 points in 82 games, 20 goals, which is quite solid, but Mercer's somebody that I don't think New Jersey needs to be competitive, but would certainly help that wing depth, that's for sure. But those are some of the big updates on the remaining RFAs in the league, and we got some big updates today as well, so hopefully you guys did enjoy. If you did, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and make sure you comment down below what your thoughts are on all these situations, and make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're new, hit that like button, hit that notification bell, share the video with all the hockey fans you guys know online, and click on this card for all my trade rumor content right in one playlist. My name is Nathan, and I hope you have a fantastic hockey day. I will see you guys in the next one, and goodbye.